All right, shalom, shalom. I'm the brother Kasha Kwala coming back at you with another lesson, giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rachakodash. All right, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, love, salutation to the elect 144, first fruit. All right, and we're going to put another installment to the Let's Look Into It little run that I got going. This will be Let's Look Into It number 6, and we're going to go into the Battle of Megiddo. And we're going to veer into the Battle of, as you can see, the Battle of Karshemish or Karkemish, however you want to pronounce it. And this is going to, stem back around to 60. We're going to go all the way back to about 609 BC, and see what we can dig up and look into. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So if you are tagging along right now, you would want to flip your books to the first book of Esdras in the Apocrypha. All right, in the Apocrypha, you want to get the first book of Esdras. All right, you want to flip to 2 Kings 23, and also flip to 2 Chronicles 35, and that's where we're going to be primarily in. And then we're going to just get some facts, and we're going to get a synopsis and an understanding of what the Battle of Megiddo was, okay? Because it was a pivotal part in history. Also, the battle of Karkemish was a pivotal battle as well. That was a turning of another nation in its inception of rulership, and we're going to really see how the Lord worked and how He wanted different rulerships to come up and go down. All right, so without further ado, I'm gonna read this. This is off of Wikipedia. It's simple. You can just type in Battle of Megiddo and it will pop up. It says this battle of Megiddo is recorded as having taken place in 609 BC when Pharaoh Necho II of Egypt led his army to Karchemish, all right, northern Syria, to join with his allies, the fading Neo-Assyrian Empire. And then when you look up the word Neo, it means to be new or made new, or something that's in a form of new, just not to speak idly. I'm going to go ahead and get that. All right. The word Neo means new, a new or revived form of. All right. So when you have the in the Battle of Megiddo, they were fighting the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which was the new Babylonian Empire that was going to come up. It was another form or derivative of the old Babylonian Empire, but it was refurbished and revamped and ready to go and stronger than ever. That's who they were coming up against. So the Egyptians were wanting to side with the Assyrians to take down this Babylonian Empire that was on its rise, all right, because they didn't want their kingdom to go down. Now, Pharaoh Necho II of Egypt, he was the last pharaoh of the diminishing Egyptian dynasty. I think he was of the 26th dynasty of the Egyptians, which we're going to get into right now. It says the fading of the Neo Empire against the surging Neo-Babylonian Empire. So surging meaning it's on the uprise. We can get the word surging real quick, or surge. When I think of surge, it sounds like electricity, you could say. So it says a sudden powerful forward or upward movement, especially by a crowd or by a natural force, such as a waves or idle. So a surge is a sudden powerful force that goes up, all right? So you can even replace the word surging Neo-Babylon with the exponential Neo-Babylonian Empire, meaning it was exponentially rising at a fast rate. It says this required passing through territory called the Kingdom of Judah. We all know what the Kingdom of Judah is, and that is the Israelites, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start reading 2 Chronicles, the 35th chapter. I'm going to start at verse 20, all right? So this is Second Chronicles, that chapter 35, verse 20. It says, after all this, when Josiah had prepared the temple, Necho, king of Egypt, came up to fight against Carchemish, or Carchemish, by Euphrates, and Josiah went out against him. All right, so Josiah went to intercept the Pharaoh Necho. Okay, and you got to remember too, because of King Solomon, we were allied with the Egyptians, or the Hamites, you could say. So just to prove that correct, I'm gonna go ahead and pull that up. The affinity that was made with the king of Israel at that time, with the Egyptians. Let's see. Oh, Salakia, not Second Kings. I want First Kings. This is First Kings chapter 3. It says, and Solomon made affinity. All right, let's get the word affinity real quick. The word affinity is chathan in the Hebrew. Chathan. So you have the word. You have the letter cha, tha, and na, and you combine them, and it's chathan. All right, and it means to become son-in-law, make oneself a daughter's husband, wife's father, wife's mother, father-in-law, mother-in-law, to make oneself a daughter's husband. So he made affinity with the Egyptians, meaning what? He married into it. All right, he took the princess, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or the daughter of Pharaoh. So let's continue. It says, and Solomon made affinity with Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And this is around 900 something, around like 900 something BC, if I'm not mistaken. We can see real quick. All right, bear with me. When he made affinity. So King Solomon came into rulership at 971 BC. So this was about like the 1900, between the 900s and the 1000 BCs, or in the 800 BCs. Not because BC goes down, not up. All right. So continuing, it says Salakia, 1 Kings 3:1, it says that Solomon made affinity with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter. That's the affinity. That's the allying with one another, where you marry into another kingdom. It's almost, that's a form of alliance right there. Like, here's my daughter. All right, we're good now. That's why you have Hiram, who was a Hamite, who worked for pretty much worked for King Solomon. He brought him treasures over from so-called the Americas. All right, so it says and brought her into the city of David until he made an end of building his own house in the house of the Lord in the wall of Jerusalem round about. So there you go. So let's skip all the way back. Skip all the way ahead. We're going to 609 BC. Now, when it says when Josiah went out to meet him in 2 Chronicles 35:20. All right, and if you're just tuning in, open your books up to the first book of Esdras, the second book of Kings, the 23rd chapter, and the second book of Chronicles, the 35th chapter, starting at 20, because we're going into these battles in this history. So when Josiah went and came and met him, he was trying to intercept them, but they were the Israelites were allied with the Egyptians at the time, because of the surging, like it says, against the surging empire, the Neo-Babylonians. Okay. So it says, verse 21, but he sent ambassadors to him, saying, what have I to do with thee, thou king of Judah? It's like, what are you doing, man? What do you have to do? What do I have to do with you, man? What beef do I have with you? I have no beef with you. Okay? It says, I come not against thee this day, meaning I'm not trying to fight you. So I don't know why you're trying to come and intercept and stop this. All right? It says, but against the house wherewith I have war, and that house wherewith that King Pharaoh Necho II of Egypt, who he had beef with, you could say, is the Babylonians. all right, and Nebuchadnezzar, Neo-Babylon, the Neo-Babylonian Empire, who was threatening the 26th dynasty of the Egyptians. Okay, and again, Pharaoh Necho was the last. He was the last significant. This was Egypt's last hurrah right here. The Lord was like, okay, y'all done. You know what I'm saying? So I'm bringing these Neo-Babylonians to take y'all out. But I kind of skipped ahead, but we're gonna get more into it. It says, but against the house wherewith I have war, the Babylonians, for the Most High commanded me to make haste, to make haste. Now this goes all the way back to what? When you read about Alexander the Greek, all right? King Philip II, he had 2 or 3 children. Alexander was like the middle or the youngest child. He wasn't up next to rule. But when you go into the history, a lot of quote unquote seers designated Alexander the Greek to be the next one to be the ruler and to actually you know, go on that campaign that he went on. Nobody else could have done that. It was a chosen divine thing. They even read the book of Daniel to Alexander the Greek. You know, it's the same thing here. The Spirit of the Lord was on Pharaoh Necho because the Lord was using that heathen to carry out his objective. You know, the Lord had a plan, and he just using the heathens, just like he did Balak in Numbers, I think the 24th chapter. All right. So going on, it says, let's see. The Most High commanded me to make haste, forbear thee from meddling with the Most High. Like, don't get into, this is the Most High's work. This ain't even, right there goes to show you that even though the heathens celebrate and dive into these other philosophies, everybody on this earth, deep down inside them, has a reverence for Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Because everybody's going to show that reverence when this day of trouble comes. Okay? So even here, Pharaoh Necho had reverence toward Yahweh. Okay? So it says, forbear thee from meddling with the Most High, who is with me. Woo! All right? That goes to show you that the Lord can do whatever he wants. And this is a big part in history, and the Lord was like, it's time to shift. It's time to shift the history. All right? So it says that he destroyed thee not. So he's like, you better get out the way and let me do the work of the Lord, or he's going to destroy you. Okay? So verse 22 says, nevertheless, Josiah would not turn his face from him. So what did he do? He rebelled. All right? Even though Pharaoh Necho told him that. You got to kind of think about it. King Josiah, when you read in I think the 34th chapter, no, this chapter as well, 35th chapter, he had a great Passover. He was one of the most righteous kings that we read about. Josiah, Hezekiah, Solomon, so on and so forth. You know, King David was some righteous kings, but doesn't give you, he didn't get a clean pass because he had the most extravagant Passover, okay? You still got to listen to the Lord and what he says do, all right? And if it so happens to come from a heathen, well, you got to peep game and have a level of discernment to understand that, oh, this is the Lord speaking, okay? And I bet it's the moment at hand is kind of hard. A heathen may be talking to you and he may be saying some real stuff and like, man, you know, you a heathen though, you know? It could be very tricky, you could say. You know what I'm saying? But you have to dig deep and know discernment and know judgment and know that the Spirit of the Lord is talking to you. You got to be really affiliated. The word fellowship means to be associated with. You got to be really affiliated and associated with the Spirit to really read it. No matter what mouth it comes out of, you got to understand and recognize that, oh man, that's the Spirit talking to me. You know? And this is a mistake that King Josiah made. Instead of listening to that voice, and to the Spirit coming out of a heathen, he decided to rebel against it. All right. So it says, nevertheless, Josiah, King Josiah, all right, would not turn his face from him, but disguised himself that he might fight with him. All right. Because you remember, all the way back in 971 BC with King Solomon, he made affinity with the Egyptians. All right. And Pharaoh at that time. So it says that he might fight with him and hearken not unto the words of Necho from the mouth of the Most High, and came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. And that's what we're going into right now. So it says, I'm going to go back up here to the Wikipedia and speaking about the battle of Megiddo. All right. So it says this required passing through the territory controlled by the kingdom of Judah. The Judean king Josiah refused to let the Egyptians pass. All right. The Judean forces battled the Egyptians at Megiddo. That is not what I read, because he says he disguised himself to fight with the Egyptians. You got to pick the bones out the meat. Okay. So it says resulting in Josiah's death and his kingdom becoming a vassal state of Egypt. The battle is recorded in the Hebrew Bible and the Greek First Esdras and the writings of Josephus. Okay, that's true. All right, but the Egyptians didn't kill him. It was from a stray arrow, which we're going to get right here. So it says, verse 22. Salakia, verse 23. It says, and the archers shot at Josiah, and the king said to his servants, have me away, for I am sore wounded. All right, he was wounded badly, all right, from the arrows. All right, so it says his servants therefore took him out of that chariot and put him in the second chariot that he had, and they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died and was buried in one of the sepulchres of his fathers. And all Judah and Jerusalem mourned for Josiah. Verse 25, and Jeremiah lamented for Josiah. And this is Jeremiah the prophet that we read. And he has his books. I'm going to hold that right there and get first Esdras. All right. Bear with me 1 second. Because it's going to say the same exact thing, but for the edification of the camera, and so brothers know exactly where it is. You can link it up when you read the Chronicles. All right. So this is going in Megiddo right here. We're going to keep this up. But I want First Esdras. All right. Verse 32. First Esdras 1 and 32. In all it says Jerry, but it's Jerusalem. They mourn for Josiah. Yea, Jeremiah the prophet lamented for Josiah. And the chief men with the women made a lamentation for him unto this day, and was given out of an ordinance to be done continually in all the nation of Israel. So I will digress. He actually did try to stop the Egyptians in the battle of Megiddo. All right, it's the Egyptians and the Israelites. Okay, so he died. King Josiah died in the battle of Megiddo. All right, trying to interfere with the king of Egypt, going to ally with the Assyrians to fight the Babylonians. Okay, so let's go up real quick. Let's go up real quick. So this is First Esdras chapter 1 and 25. It says, now after all these acts of Josiah came to pass, that Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, came to raise war at Carchemish upon the Euphrates. That's where he was going. That's where King Pharaoh Necho was going to meet the Neo-Assyrian Empire to ally with them to fight the Babylonians. Now it's crazy how the Lord had this all planned out and mapped out. It says, and Josiah went out against him. All right, but the king of Egypt sent to him, saying, what have I to do with thee, O king of Judah? I am not sent from am I not sent out from the Lord power against thee? For I am not sent out from the Lord power against thee, for my war is upon Euphrates, and now the Lord is with me. Yeah, the Lord is with me, hasting me forward. depart from me and be not against the Lord. Verse 28, howbeit Josiah did not turn back his chariot from him. Now, we went into the rebelliousness. Now, let's go into the spiritual thing of it. All right? The Lord wanted Josiah to do this. He wanted to impede the traffic of the Egyptians getting to the Assyrians on time. All right? Because the Egyptians did not get to the Assyrians on time, therefore the Assyrians were kind of left red-handed and left to die, you could say, against the stronger force of the Babylonians. By the time the Egyptians did get to Carchemish, the Assyrians were pretty much depleted, and the Babylonians were on a rampage. Therefore, the Egyptians lost that battle. Crazy, isn't it? The Lord works in a very mysterious ways, and he does things the way he wants, and he's very calculated with his movements. All right? So it says, for the war is upon Euphrates, and now the Lord is with me. I'm going to go to verse 28. Howbeit Josiah did not turn back from his chariot, but undertook to fight with him, but were not regarding the words of the prophet Jeremiah spoken by the mouth of the Lord. So he didn't listen to the prophet. All right? It says, but joined battle with him in the plain of Megiddo, and the princes came against King Josiah. Then said the king unto his servants, carry me away out of the battle, for I am very weak. And immediately the servants took him away out of the battle. Verse 31. Then gate he up upon his second chariot. Then got he upon the second chariot, and being brought back to Jerusalem, died, and was buried with his fathers in the sepulchre. So, Jeremiah tried to warn Josiah. The king Pharaoh Necho tried to warn Josiah. That's two. All right? Therefore, the Lord had to do what he had to do. Now, let's go into the battle of Carchemish. All right? It says was fought in 605 BC. So, about 4 years later. All right? They finally reach Carchemish. All right? Between the armies of Egypt allied with the remnants of the army of the Assyrian Empire against the armies of Babylonia, allied with the Medes, Persians, and Scythians. Okay? So said the remnant of the Assyrians, meaning the Assyrians were getting their ass kicked out there in Carchemish. Because of what? Because the Lord held up the Egyptians in a battle in Megiddo against the Israelites. All right? Making them tardy to the battle of Carchemish. Therefore, the Assyrian army was getting demolished by the Babylonians, and what was left of them wasn't that many, and it was pretty much the Egyptians against the Babylonians, the Medes, the Persians, and the Scythians, okay, at that time. All right? So it says, the background of it, it says, when the Assyrian capital Nineveh was overrun by the Medes, Scythians, Babylonians, and their allies in 612 BC, the Assyrians moved their capital to Haran, and when Haran was captured by the alliance in 609 BC, ending the Assyrian Empire. Woo! The remnants of the Assyrian army joined Carchemish, a city under Egyptian rule on the Euphrates River. That's right. So what? The Babylonians were impeding danger to the Egyptian rulership, which was the last 26 dynasty of the Egyptians, okay? Of the Egyptians. Let's see something. No, we can keep going. It says Egypt, a former vessel of Assyria, was allied with the Assyrian king Ashur-uballit, if I'm saying that right, the second, and marched in 609 BC to his aid against the Babylonians, but he was too late because he was meddling around in the battle of Megiddo with King Josiah. That's why it ended up happening that it was just a total demise for them. So with that, let's go to 2 Chronicles, the 36th chapter, and get the battle of Carchemish. All right. And we're gonna go to verse 5. No, we're gonna start at verse 1. So this is 2 Chronicles 36:1. The people of the land took Joaz, the son of Josiah, and made him king in his father's stead of Jerusalem. All right, so this is going back to a scene of what happened after the battle of Megiddo. All right, so Joaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem, not long at all. It says, and the king of Egypt put him down at Jerusalem and condemned the land in 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. All right, the Israelites lost that battle. Okay, all right. Therefore, the Egyptians were kind of like over. It says, verse 4, and the king of Egypt made Eliakim, his brother, king over Judah and Jerusalem, and turned his name into Jehoiakim. And Necho took Jehoaz, his brother, and carried him to Egypt. So he carried him captive. All right. It says Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. He did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, his power. Against him came up Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Now you see, from verses 1 through 4, he was speaking about Egyptian rule over the Israelites. And when you get to verse 6, it talks about Nebuchadnezzar. So where was the change? So between verses 4 and 5 and 6 was the battle of Carchemish that took place. Therefore, it was a switch of power. So going from verse 4 all the way to verse 6, it was a switch of power from the Egyptians and the Assyrians to now the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Okay? So it says, against him came up Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and bound him in fetters and carried him to Babylon. So he became a captive of the Babylonians. And who set up someone else? Nebuchadnezzar. All right? And when you look up Nebuchadnezzar, what was he? He was an Assyrian. All right? He really wasn't a Babylonian or a Chaldean. All right? So it says, verse 7, it says, Nebuchadnezzar also carried the vessels of the house of the Lord to Babylon and put them in his temple at Babylon. All right? So pretty much when you read in the 2 Chronicles 36, between 1 and 6, that is a switch of power. And that was about 605 BC was when the Babylonians really came on the scene as a power and took up in rulership. And the Egyptians were no more. The Assyrians were no more. The Lord was done using them. All right, so they're out there. 2 Chronicles 36, the Assyrians and the Egyptians, no more. All right, no more. All right, now it's the Babylonians. And then when you read further down, you get into the next rulership and into the next book, which would be the Persians. All right. But this was the Battle of Megiddo, 609 BC, and the Battle of Carchemish, which is 605 BC. Just a quick synopsis on it, and, you know, y'all brothers can really do some more research on it and really deep down dig into the history of this thing, because we have to know what happened, you know, and know strategies, because these are all strategies of warfare that we're going to have to know when we enter into that day of trouble. Okay, we're going to have to know how to flank. We're going to have to know when to attack. We're going to have to know when to just fall back and let things happen, and when to make our move and when not to make our move. I mean, we got to learn from the acts of King Josiah. Even though he was a righteous king, it wasn't his move. It's not your move. All right? That's why the scripture said the meddling with the Most High. You ain't supposed to meddle with the Most High's algorithm in his program. You're supposed to just go with it. The scriptures say, force not the course of the river. All right, so this is just a little history. We kind of went into the book of First Esdras. The book of First Esdras, which goes into the battle of Megiddo, also the battle of Carchemish. Also, we went into 2 Chronicles, the 35th and 36th chapter, and also I really didn't go into 2 Kings 23, but in 2 Kings 23, it also speaks about the battle of Megiddo as well. And you can just align all those up to get the full understanding and the full essence of what really was happening during that time, and why there was a shift of rulership during that time as well. You know, so like I said, this is another installment of Let's Look Into It, and it's about the Battle of Megiddo, the Battle of Carchemish. But you know, Lord willing, y'all brothers was edified, and I want to give all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Machakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone who rule well. Peace, love, salutation to the elect 144 first fruit. I'm the brother Kasha Kuala from the GMS Atlanta Church. And until next time, like always, Shalom.